Hey folks, in a previous video we talked about how to use the Lean UX canvas. One of the things we didn't cover in detail in that video was how to actually prioritize the hypotheses that you come up with in the Lean UX canvas for testing, because you shouldn't test everything. None of us live in a world where the budget that we have is strictly for research or strictly for learning. We actually have to ship stuff. So the budget, the time, the resources that we do have for learning should be focused on a specific set of hypotheses, not all of them. So this video is a short one to help you determine which hypotheses to test, which ones to throw away, which ones to just build. Let's take a look at that right now. So we talked about the Lean UX canvas in the last video, and really once you get to step 6 in the canvas, you've written your hypotheses. That's very, very important. Now, the next question in box number 7 says, what's the most important thing we need to learn first? Well, in order to answer that question, we need to actually determine which hypothesis we want to test first. And we do that by working through a tool called the hypothesis prioritization canvas. It's just another sort of 2x2 matrix to help you decide which hypothesis to test. And that's the framework that I'm going to go through today to help you determine which hypotheses to test. So let's take a look at that. The hypothesis prioritization canvas is a 2x2 matrix, nothing more fancy than that. The x-axis is an axis of risk. You've got low risk on the left side, you've got high risk on the right side. The y-axis is perceived value. Now, you have high perceived value at the top, low perceived value at the bottom. Perceived value and not actual value is the language here, because we don't know. These are hypotheses. We haven't built this stuff. We haven't shipped it. So we don't know if these are valuable. We are making a series of assumptions that this is going to help the customer be more successful. And if the customer or the user is more successful, then this is more valuable to the business as well. Now, risk is going to be contextual to your hypothesis. For example, you might have design risk in your hypothesis. You're redesigning an e-commerce platform, and no one has ever shopped online this way, so you're designing a new way of working, right? You might have technical risk. This is a new technology that we have to integrate with a legacy system, and so that's really technically risky for us as well. You might have brand or market risk. We've been building products for a certain market segment for a long time, and now we're moving to another market segment. So risk is going to be contextual to each hypothesis that you put onto this 2x2 matrix. And so you take that list of hypotheses that you generated in box number 6 and you start to map it onto this 2x2 matrix based on how valuable you think it is and how risky you think it is. And now the hypotheses that land in box number 1, the ones that are high perceived value and high risk, those are the ones that you test. Those are the ones that we are actually going to work through and design experiments for and spend the budget and the time and the resources that we have to learn on, because if we get these right, we stand to have a meaningful impact on the customer and on the organization. If we get it wrong, we also stand to have a meaningful impact on the customer and the organization, just in a negative way. And so these are the ones where we design experiments and MVPs, and those are the ones that we want to test. Now, if you map your hypotheses and they land in box number 2 over here where it says ship and measure, that's high perceived value and low risk, we are not going to test those hypotheses. We're just going to build them, and then we're going to ship them, and then we're going to measure whether or not they lived up to our expectations, right? So the hypothesis statement has success criteria in it as an outcome, as a key result, as a measure of user behavior. And so if a hypothesis is high value but low risk, we're fairly confident that this is going to work, then we ship it and we measure it and we just make sure that it lives up to our expectations. Now, if a hypothesis lands in box number 4, right over here, in high risk, low value, we are going to throw that hypothesis away. We are not even going to work on it. We are not going to test it. We're not going to build it, right? If it's high risk and we believe that it's low value, why are we going to spend any cycles on it? Not just learning cycles, but actual development cycles on it at all. Any hypothesis that lands in box number 4, we throw away. Now, the tricky box is box number 3. Basically, anything below the risk line we don't test. But box number 3 gets a little tricky because we're definitely not testing something that is low risk and low value, and in most cases we're not even building it, so we kind of throw it away. But there will be situations where a hypothesis comes up with a feature that we need to participate in the space that we are playing in online. For example, it's an e-commerce system and you need to take payments, and so you've got a payment system that needs to be built. Now, you don't need to test it because it's a fairly standard process. It's not going to differentiate you in the marketplace. You need to take payment, but it's not risky enough. That's worthy of any kind of test. So we're going to build it. We need it to play in the space, but it's just one of those things. It's like table stakes. We have to have it to play in there. So again, no testing that. And the only hypotheses that we test are the ones that land in box number 1. Those that are high perceived value, and those that are high risk. Okay. And so as you think about which hypotheses to test, that's a really good way to think about it. Use that 2x2 matrix, the hypothesis prioritization canvas, and let me know how it goes. Good luck.